All right. Okay, well, it is now my privilege to present to you Mr. Micah Mullin and his paper, De Oppresso Liber.
All right. Throughout the ages, most countries that hold or held global influence at one time or another have been involved in some bloody conflicts to achieve and maintain their status. This is certainly true in the case of America. However, America's larger wars have an interesting distinction that sets them apart from most every other conflict in the history of any other nation. The wars from the Revolutionary War up to the World War II are similar to most other wars in the altruistic reasons that they were fought. America fought only when it was necessary to protect itself, either by ending their involvement in an oppressive government in the Revolutionary War or retaliating against an unprovoked attack in the Second World War. The majority of America's conflicts were fought because there was no other viable option. During World War II, America's reason for fighting began to change. America got involved not only for their own sake, but for the sake of others. This pattern has only been repeated in years since. Other conflicts such as the Korean War, Vietnam War, or global war on terror have been fought to help others instead of the immediate defense of one's own country. The U.S. Army Special Forces took up the Latin phrase De Oppresso Liber, which means to liberate the oppressed, as their motto. America, which God granted freedom to, was now using the influence it had on the global scale to help other countries who did not have great freedom to gain it. In response to this change, we must ask whether or not those who have been granted freedom and power by God have either a right or obligation to help those who do not have freedom to gain it. It must be shown that a governing institution is a good thing that should be established and protected. St. Augustine writes in his book, The City of God, about pursuing an empire and whether or not it is a good goal to pursue. In his 4th chapter, Augustine says, "If the true God is worshipped and if he is served with genuine rights and true virtue, it is advantageous that good men should long reign both far and wide. Nor is this advantageous so much to themselves as to those over whom they reign. When God-fearing men worship God and serve him with true rights and virtues, the resulting rule will become beneficial for all. A structured government is important if good men are to be in positions of power. If there is not an institution to select and protect the chosen leaders, the most powerful men would be the evil men. Not having a government that allows fair procedures for people to be selected to be in power is problematic for 2 reasons. The first is that by not having a fair method to put people in charge, the evil men will certainly beat out all of the good men who cannot justify doing so much evil for so little good, even though it may be more effective. The second reason is that not only will the good be weeded out from the bad, but the bad will be further distilled into those who are evil and those who are even more evil. The man who gets the power will be the most evil man because he was willing to do what others were not to get what he wants. In fact, it would seem that by not having a system to fairly choose a ruler is the best system to ensure that the most evil man will rule. A good man is necessary to further good, and thus an instituted system which ensures fairness is also necessary to ensure the rule of a good man. It has been shown that for all people to benefit from a government, it must be ruled by a good man. But Augustine will take this even further. Augustine also says, "Therefore the dominion of good men is profitable not so much as for themselves as for human affairs, but the dominion of bad men is hurtful." Here it is made clear that good men are needed in power, but just as importantly, bad men must be kept out of power. A government that rules for the good of its people must keep bad men out of power. In order to understand why it is profitable for good men to rule and not bad men, the consequences of each kind of man's rule must be studied. To illustrate these, the 2 types of leaders must be identified. In Plato's Gorgias, Socrates debates Gorgias' student Polus on the nature of power as it relates to a leader. Polus begins by saying that a leader who has power should use the power to better himself, because that is what seems best to him. Because of this, Polus believes tyrants to be the most powerful people. Socrates disagrees with this, saying, "In my opinion, they are not considered at all." Confused, Polus replies, "How are they not considered? Are they not the most powerful in their cities?" Socrates answers saying, "No, if by power you mean something that is good for its possessor." To which Polus replies that he does indeed believe that power is good for its possessor. Socrates believes that the purpose of power is not to help oneself, but to help one's subjects. Socrates' leader leads for his people, much like a doctor whose motivation to work is not to gain wealth, but to help cure people's ailments. The good leader is able to inspire people to do what he believes is best for them. He knows all the inner workings of his empire and how to keep it running. Polus's leader may also know how to run his empire efficiently, but he runs it efficiently according to his own purposes. The choices he makes in regards to the actions of his empire are made depending on whether or not they will help him. He is able to inspire his followers to do his own bidding. The good and true leader rules for the good of his people, and the bad and false leader rules for the good of himself. Let us now look at how each leader would run his empire and what the effects on good as a whole would be. First, the effects of Socrates' leader will be seen. This leader does what is good for his people. Since the good leader seeks to do good, the social environment will be helpful for the spread of good overall. His empire is designed to benefit his people in the best possible way. Although he wants the best for his people, he also wants to help others who are not under his own rule. He will help others only so long as the help comes through his own self-sacrifice and not through hurting his own people. Polis's leader runs his empire in the exact opposite fashion of the good man. He runs his empire to his maximum personal gain. He's not intentionally trying to disadvantage others, but he does not care if he does. This creates an environment that is slanted against anything that is not in his own best interest. He may not be actively trying to halt the progression of good, but his self-centeredness harms it. This provides harmful conditions for good. If a bad or evil man is in power, he must be removed if good is to advance. The empire that is run by good men is an exceptional and worthy goal to be achieved. However, a government in which the majority of rulers are good and not evil will not be attained easily. There will always be a threat of bad men who are constantly battling for power. These bad men will have to be removed from the position of power or stopped from getting a position of strength. What are those who are good allowed to do in order to keep those who are bad out of their government? If the good government that is ruled by virtuous and moral men, if the good that a government ruled by virtuous and moral men brings is outweighed by the harm that must come to achieve it, the good should not attempt to get their perfect government. If the good may not use the controversial forms of force to remove an evil man on their own soil without compromising their morality, how can they be expected to use those same means of force on foreign soil? In theory, there are two ways to remove an evil man. The first would be to use superior force to remove the evil man. The evil man will either comply or suffer the consequences of resisting. Whichever way the evil man acts, he will be removed voluntarily or involuntarily. The second means of removing the evil man works on the basic human principle, which is that man will never do anything unless he has a reason to. If an evil man is in power, he may also be removed by giving him an incentive to step down from his position. Neither of these methods is entirely perfect because they both end up disturbing the peace. The first method is entirely obvious in how it will disturb the peace, and conversely, the second method is more obscure in how it will harm peace. Because of a misconception of what peace is, many think that peace is akin to non-violence, which is incorrect. Even though there are no acts of violence being committed, bowing down to an evil man and complying with his every demand so that he will not become violent is by no means peace. The second method, which has the possibility to diffuse the situation peacefully, is not reliable by any means. When the second method is employed, there is a risk that the evil man will take his incentive and not honor his end of the bargain. If the second method fails, it will only serve to prolong the evil man's harm. Because of this, it is better to use the first method because it has a much higher chance of success and also has the possibility of a peaceful resolve. But if the first method is to be used, we must examine what makes a good man different from a bad man, since they may both use the same type of action. When looking at both the evil man and the good man, one can notice similarities in the way that they each operate. An evil man will almost always use very aggressive means to get what he wants. Similarly, the good man may also use very forceful means to get what he wants. This is troubling because the trademark of a good man is that he acts in the opposite manner than the bad man. If the bad man's actions are bad, then the good man's actions must be good, or else he is not a good man. And depending on the situation, a good man may take actions that are the same, or at least very similar to those of the evil man. There needs to be a distinction between good men and bad men. If there is not a distinction, then there are only men who one believes to be beneficial, and those he believes to be not beneficial. It is all a matter of opinion. To distinguish these two types of men, we must determine why an action may be viewed as good or bad. There is a singular factor that can greatly influence the moral standing of an action. Most would think that this factor would be the circumstances which surround the action taken. St. Aquinas debates this question with himself of what makes an action good or bad. He sets the stage of the argument that he opposes, writing the following. The philosopher says that a virtuous man acts as he should and when he should, and so on. According to the circumstances, therefore, on the other hand, the vicious man, in the matter of each vice, acts as he should not, when he should not, and so on, with the other circumstances. Therefore, human actions are good or evil according to the circumstances. Let us now see if Aquinas' argument for this position holds true. If one were to cause harm to a man that is attacking an innocent person, should he be excused from his crime because his action saved an innocent man from further harm? Of course he should be exempt from what he did because he acted as he should in that set of circumstances. Now the same event shall transpire. However, in this scenario, the man's purpose for acting is different. Even though his actions were the same, in this circumstance, it is known that the man strikes the attacker solely because he did not like him, and not because he was trying to save the innocent man. Even though good came out of the man's actions, and he acted as he should in the circumstances that were present, he struck a man for the wrong reason and must be punished. These are the same situations with the same circumstances. Because the man acted wrongly the second time, circumstance cannot be what influences the morality of an act. Aquinas further dismantles his opposing argument, saying, "It would seem that an action is not good or evil from a circumstance, for circumstances stand around an action as being outside it, as was stated above. The circumstances that surround an act do not make it good or evil. A set of different circumstances do not all of a sudden make an evil act, such as striking another person, a good thing. This does not mean that any act which may harm a few is evil, just that the circumstances are not what determines its goodness. Instead of the circumstance, it is the reason for acting which determines whether the action is good or bad." Aquinas states his position by writing, "Further, the goodness or malice of an action is considered principally in the doctrine of morals. Therefore, the goodness or malice of an action is not taken from a circumstance. An action is good or bad according to why the person did it. Now, if one attacks a man to save another who is being hurt, he has acted justly because he aimed to help through harm and not harm through help. Even though two men may act in the same exact manner, they are not necessarily the same. What distinguishes a good man from a bad man is the intent that they have for their actions. While good men and bad men can have the same actions and still be different, there lies a hidden danger. Some would believe that a good man who acts like an evil man will be made into an evil man, yet this is not true. Just because one acts like an evil man does not make him an evil man. However, if a good man acts like an evil man long enough, he may begin to change. If he has changed enough that he acts for the same reasons as the evil man, then he has become an evil man. The good man may need to act in the manner of an evil man, but he should avoid doing so as much as possible, because it may be only a matter of time before he turns from a good man into a bad man." Augustine writes on doing what is necessary to avoid a greater evil, and whether or not it is moral. In addition to being one of the most renowned Christian theologians, he's also one of the first to believe that Christians could be soldiers and bring honor to their God and country. He does not want to go to war and will not resort to war if he has other options, but he knows that God gave government a sword to bear for the reason of punishing wickedness and protecting the peace. He also believes that we are just as responsible for our actions as our inactions. In chapter 21 of the City of God, he says, "They who have waged war in obedience to the divine command or in conformity with his laws have represented in their persons the public justice or wisdom of government, and in this capacity have put to death wicked men. Such persons have by no means violated the commandment, 'Thou shalt not kill.'" The majority of the book of Judges is a cycle of the Israelites disobeying God, being enslaved by another tribe or city, and then after being persecuted for varying time spans, they will call upon God to save them, and God will raise up someone to bear his sword and kill the leader or entire army of their subjugators. If one sees something wrong happening and does nothing to stop it, he is just as guilty as the one who is doing it. One who does nothing, even in the face of a grave evil, is sinning. It has been shown that the good may do what is necessary to keep the bad man out of power on their own soil, so long as the good outweighs the bad. Does anything change if a group of people does what is necessary to keep bad men out of power in a foreign country? If there is an evil or otherwise tyrannical leader of a foreign country, do other countries have the right to intervene, assuming he does not pose an immediate threat to them? A government that uses its military might to stop evil is entirely legitimate. The location of evil does not change the legitimacy of stopping evil. To echo Augustine, God gave the sword to the people that he did for a reason. He picked these people, organizations, and countries because he knew that they would use the sword to end evil. It is the responsibility of those who have been granted the sword to use it as God would have them do.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Mullin. Well done. Give me a moment, I'll have some opening questions for you.
All right.
All right, I would like to begin with a question of clarification. You state the circumstances that surround an act do not make it good or evil.
Yes.
And you actually had a fairly good portion of your paper was devoted to establishing that position. I would like you to further clarify why that particular position is important to the argument that you're making in this paper.
It's important because if there's no distinction between good men and evil men, then there's really no legitimacy to going over to a foreign country and because if America goes over to whatever foreign country because there's a bad guy there and we want to stop him, throughout war, innocent people are going to get hurt and bad stuff is going to happen. That's just the way it is. And if there's no distinction, if it's just, I just don't like what he's doing, rather than he's actually bad and we need to stop him, then there's no real argument to going over there and stopping him just because you don't like what he does. It has to be that he is an evil man. So I just need to distinguish between that there is such a thing as good and evil, or good men and evil men, rather than just I just disagree with his views or what he's doing.
And so, in that sentence, by circumstances, you mean our own agreement or disagreement with somebody's actions?
Say that again?
So, in the statement, you say, when you say, now I've lost it. Yes, the circumstances that surround an act will not make it good or evil. In that situation, what you're referring to by circumstances is the particular circumstances of someone's actions and whether or not we agree with what they are doing.
Not necessarily. What I'm saying there is that the circumstances. So like the example I used here. If I see some guy beating up some other guy, I can't just go and hit him just the circumstances that I don't like that guy. That doesn't give me any right, and I'm using that just as the way to distinguish between good guys and bad guys.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you very much. And down below, you made another statement I'd like to examine. It says, instead of the circumstance, it is reason for acting which determines whether the action is good or bad.
Yes.
Now, would you say that another way of saying your position here is to state that intentions are what makes an action good or bad?
I guess you could say that, and I wish I could have expounded on that a little more, because I know that there's a lot of people who had really great intentions and stuff that they did was wrong. I think you can kind of get what I'm saying here if when someone has good intentions and then they start doing something bad, I think it's because they had good intentions and they want this so badly, but they begin to change, and so their reasons for doing what they're doing begins to change, and that's why they become evil. So overall, yeah, that's a good blanket statement, but there's a lot of different ways to look at it.
Okay. So there are times when people have good intentions, but their actions are actually harmful to those that they are trying to help.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, if good intentions are not necessarily the best means to look at to determine whether or not someone's action is going to be good or bad with respect to the object of their actions, what would be a fuller way of expressing what does make someone's actions good in respect to what they're doing to the particular object of their actions?
Well, I can kind of use their whole intentions things. That's if they have good intentions and that's why they're doing it, then that's a good thing. But the point at which it becomes evil, in my opinion, is when they start acting for not their own reasons. If I'm trying to help someone and I'm trying to do good and all that, and by accident something bad happens, my action was still good, but it's the point at which you start trying to think how to put this into words here. The point at which you start, your reasons for acting begin to change. So I think if you have good intentions, then your action is good, and you'll see a place where people may say, yeah, he had good intentions when he first started out. Over so long, his intentions aren't so good anymore, and that is why he's, why it's an evil act, in my opinion.
All right, thank you very much. Now, down a couple more paragraphs, you make the statement: if someone sees something wrong happening and does nothing to stop it, he is as guilty as the one who is doing it.
Yes.
Now, it seems that there are certain circumstances in which we see some wrong being done, where we are not capable of effectively resisting that wrong, and to attempt to do it would just be foolhardy. For instance, if you know you and your friend are out in the woods, and a gang of 10 thugs comes up and starts beating up on your friend, and you see that there's no way that you can overpower them. Is it really wrong for you to flee and try to preserve your own life? Or must you engage this, battle with 10 on 1 and show yourself, to go down with a sword in your front side rather than the coward's shame of having run away in that situation?
In that situation, you don't necessarily just have to, run and hide. If you're out in the woods, those aren't great odds. You can kind of make your own choice, but don't just run away and hide just to save your own skin. If there's nothing that you can do, then you can run and hide and go find someone who can help. And that's your reason for running away, is to go and get someone to help. So yeah, you could stay and fight, but it's not going to do any good. So you might as well, take the next best thing, go and find, in that situation, go and find the police, and then they could come and help, because I can't do any good there. So I think it's hard to find a situation in which you can't resist in some way.
Okay. It seems if you're looking at that statement and applying it to the political sphere, that one could draw the conclusion that if there's some wrong in the world that's currently not being righted by some power, that our country is at fault if we do not attempt to go and engage that particular situation. And obviously there's a tremendous amount of wrongs being perpetrated in the world, and is it really a mark on our national conscience if we have not engaged in every conflict that might happen to be around the world at this time?
I would say yes. If we have an opportunity to go and do some good and we don't take it, and we're not going to cause any harm by doing that, then yeah, that's a problem. But if over in whatever country they have a law that we don't like, but if we go over there and put troops on the ground, that's going to cause way more harm than is already being done there. So in that case, the goal is to minimize harm. So if we're going to cause more harm trying to stop them from doing their little thing, then obviously that would not be a good thing to do, because we're going to cause more harm than we would be stopping.
Mm-hmm. And also with foreign involvement, it seems that there is a necessity to understand the repercussions of one's actions in foreign involvement. And an interesting case in point seems to be the Iraq War now. Many people, I remember the Republican debate, I think there was 10 Republican candidates, and 6 of them said they all felt that the Iraq War was a mistake. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people are looking back at that now and saying, we went in, we took out the bad guy, Saddam Hussein, and we have been unable to create a situation in which more bad guys don't arise. And so they're looking at the bad guys today and looking at Saddam, and they're saying, it probably would have been better to leave Saddam in power. Now, how when you're involved in another country, how can you understand fully enough the repercussions of your actions to know whether or not your intentions are actually going to result in the good that you anticipate rather than just further harm?
It really depends on situationally and all that, but I guess there comes a point where maybe you can't predict what's going to happen. But you can make a calculated risk, and if it goes the wrong way, that's not the outcome you were hoping for, and you thought by your calculated risk that you were going to do more good than harm. So there's no way to really always know what's gonna happen, but you can make a educated guess.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mullin. I'll open it up now to questions for others. Anyone else have questions? All right, we have one of our onliners, Mr. Mike Charney. Go ahead, please.
Micah, really enjoyed listening to it.
Thank you.
My question is about this Iraq war issue, and I was wondering, since the U.S. went in and did a lot of fighting, and then they pulled out, and it seems like ISIS is doing a lot of harm over there. Do you think that we have an obligation to go back and try to rectify the situation again, or do you think it's just going to produce the same issue as before?
Well, from my understanding, the whole thing with ISIS is that we went over there and we did our thing, which is all fine and dandy. And then when we leave and we've taken out all the leadership there, then it's created a vacuum. ISIS comes in and does their thing. In my opinion, cowards cut and run, and I don't want to be a coward. So I would love to rectify that situation over there. But if we do, we have to go over there and we have to stay over there and we have to establish a solid government. We can't just go over there, kill all the bad guys and leave, because guess what? More bad guys are coming. So we need to stay there and make a government that, and we need to stay there as long as we need to, until that government can hold its own. Then we could come back. So yeah, obviously, a lot of stuff that's going on over there right now is not real great, and I would like to be able to go over there and rectify what we've done. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Charnay. Let's go next to Ms. Koch.
Listening to this, I did have a question. Can the actions of the good man, when he's trying to depose the evil man, ever go too far? And is there a point at which the good man becomes evil when trying to depose the evil man? Yes.
All right, yeah. So there's definitely a place where it could go too far. For example, in Iraq, if we had instead said, okay, we're going to get rid of Saddam, and instead of putting boots on the ground, we're just going to turn the entire country into a glass parking lot. That'd be going too far, because we're killing everyone in there, and yeah, we're killing the bad guy, but the harm that's coming from that, I'm pretty sure that the villagers who were being hit with chemical weapons would much rather have a chance at escaping the gas than a nuclear bomb blast. So the point at which the harm that's going to come from you trying to help, when that harm outweighs the harm that's already going on, that's when I think you're going too far. And then so you said, can a good man become an evil man? Absolutely, and I think that happens when your reasons change. If you're a good man and an evil man can have the exact same or similar actions, in my opinion. But when the evil man is doing that because the evil man's doing his thing because he wants this or he wants to cause harm or whatever. If the good man does the same thing, bad guys are killing us, we're killing bad guys. We're killing them to stop them. They're killing us because they want to do their thing. In Afghanistan, they want to have worldwide Sharia law, and we're not going to have that. So there comes a point where you just kind of have to say, no, that's not going to happen, and stand up. But your reasons need to be the right reasons.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Koch. Let's go next to Kent Jackson.
Okay, I have a couple things. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, when you said put a government on other countries, how would people feel if some other country in here barged in here, even if we were oppressed, and stopped them, but then said, okay, we're going to take over your country? We need to look at it as we are going and taking other people's countries without their say-so. We are basically encroaching on other people's property. If we did that, and we do.
All right. The way I look at it, if I was being oppressed and I wasn't able to fight back, I would sure as heck want someone to come in and help me, even if they're going to take over my country. But the point of my paper here is kind of saying, God gave America's government the ability to go over to Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever, and help out. He gave them that power for a reason. He wouldn't have given it to them just willy-nilly for no reason. He gave it to them because he knew that they would use it to try and help. So, whether or not the people have their, want it or not, if there's, bad dudes doing bad stuff, there's, in Iraq and Afghanistan, for every person who doesn't want American military there were a lot who did, because we gave them first aid, medicine, all that, and then we were also, helping them get out of, all the whole mess that's going on there. So, there's also a lot of people who do, want help.
Mm-hmm. And, well, when you said it was an unprovoked attack on Pearl Harbor, and what I have a book. It's called Uncle Eric Books, and he talks about other stuff. The meaning